And when I looked up the word extraordinary, it's just that extraordinary. So it's like not living out of mediocrity, because everybody can live in mediocrity if they want to. But it's like, what's that little shift that people need to make in their own life, whatever it happens to be for them, that they goes from an ordinary life to more of an extraordinary life, just a little more flavor on top of the, I don't know, the whatever you want to call it. For me, it's about helping people understand what it is they really want in their life and to create more of it.
Welcome to Just Healing, where we rediscover humanity in our conversations around trauma and celebrate all the unique ways we love and heal. Welcome to this next episode of Just Healing. We have a great show for you today. I am so excited. This next person has been in my life. Oh my God, it has been at least 10 years now. I mean, I don't know. He's so integrated in my life and what I do, and he's an amazing person. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself because I am also going to butcher his name, but I think it's Mark Venkalier. So introduce yourself, Mark.
Yeah, my name is Mark Venkalier, so it's Dutch, and yeah, what else do you want to know?
What you do, who you are, your
So
background,
what I do,
what makes you so Mark?
oh dear God, that's such a loaded question. But the majority of what I do is I have a private practice here in my home, and I started off with a degree in social work because I always wanted to work with people. I was not interested in testing people like you are, Deborah. I like to read the test, but not really do it. So I like to keep my hands dirty, like, deep down in the trenches. I was always fascinated from a young age how the mind works, how emotions work, how people develop, and what happens when they get stuck, and how to support people. It's always been a fascination of mine, and so I just started working in the field. I've worked in so many different areas as a social worker, from hospice to severely chronically mentally ill to sexually assaulted people to I often like to say, like, from the cradle to the grave, right? So when people first get born, well, not people, but when they're first born and they go through trauma, and then as they're getting to high school age, and then college age, and then, people even now that are going through end of life stuff in hospice. And it's just been, it's been a ride, because I know some of my colleagues have kind of stayed in one direction. Like it's like criminology, or it's like family, or it's just this specific children. But I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of demographics. And so, and then also doing some transformational work where it's basically just personal development workshops in a much more concentrated form. And I just love it. Like, when I'm working with somebody, that's when my heart sings. That's when I lose track of time. And it just, I feel in flow, and I don't necessarily think through things. It's just, I've studied, I've experienced it for so long that stuff just flows through me. And I just kind of like watch and get out of the way. And sometimes when we've talked, I'm like, well, where did that come from? That was pretty cool. Like, I don't even know where it came from, because it just came from me somewhere, and I just kind of learned to get out of the way. And so I think that'll work for now.
Well,
I hate answering that question, Deborah, because it's like, you can't put me on a shelf, and like the elf on the shelf, because like it's so non-dimensional for me.
it is very non-dimensional, and you have so much more to add to that. And I personally, I part of the show is I bring people in my life so people get to know me a little bit. And I tell you, I personally have worked with Mark, and when I met you, I was like, what is this coaching? What is this weird hoodoo that he wants to do? And you would make me write on the board, and I'd look at you like you were crazy. And then I realized there was so much there. There was so much to unpack about being a little uncomfortable, right? And also looking at myself. And you kept saying, but what's going to make you the best you? What is going to make you go forward? And those words always resonated with me. What's going to make you the most extraordinary you? I mean, that's even your email, you know? And so talk about that. How did you come up with that? Because I know it's helped me.
I think sometimes I like to have wordplay, right? Wordsmithing a little bit. And when I looked up the word extraordinary, it's just that extraordinary. So it's like not living out of mediocrity, because everybody can live in mediocrity if they want to. But it's like, what's that little shift that people need to make in their own life, whatever it happens to be for them, that they go from an ordinary life to more of an extraordinary life, just a little more flavor on top of the, I don't know, the whatever you want to call it. for me, it's about helping people understand what it is they really want in their life and to create more of it. And sometimes the questions themselves allow people enough space and enough opportunity to really get clear on what it is they specifically want. Because I've also been a part of or seen other programs where it's like it's all cookie cutter, right? A plus B plus C, and then you make A equals D, and that is your product. But it's so much more nuanced than that. Yeah, yeah. You know, Deborah, honestly, like I struggle with being interviewed because it's such a I don't want to be like the speaker or the professional or whatever. It's just like the magic for me happens in conversations with people, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you'll say something, I'll say something, and then we just dance off of those interactions. That so it's like, oh, this is awkward, but I'm working through it. So, and then even when you said like that I was helping or assisting you in asking you extraordinary, and that gave me chills because I was like, wait a minute, I did that because because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I just do whatever, and it just
That's
normally
what
is.
I love because you like are in the moment and I can see you get all excited with me about things and the light comes on, right?
Yeah,
But the other part that is so great because people get stuck in things, right?
yeah,
And they get stuck in their own like stuff. That's the only thing I can think of. And you're going to get a kick out of this because this whole 2 weeks, me and my kids have been doing this thing. So, did you have an agreement with me? Why didn't you honor your agreement? Well, yeah. And
yeah,
it's like bone chilling because you have nothing. You didn't do it. Right.
yeah,
But you
right.
have to actually engage. You have to actually have a conversation. And I learned that from you, like completely. And so Lawrence is like, you had an agreement with me, mama. And like Sonia's like, what is our personal agreement? But do you know that has opened up so much of that unstuckness, right? So I mean, I don't know, say something to that because I don't think you realize what an impact that makes on people.
Well, you know, being a coach, being a therapist, whatever, I often say it's often very you don't often get to see the impacts or the effects of it, right? So if I was a builder and I built a house, I'd be like, okay, here's this land. Now I put some sticks together and now I built a house. Like I did that, right? So it's not very often that people come back and say things like you did and that it's really had an impact because you know I have an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, sometimes an hour and a half, and I give them the best value I can at the moment, but then I don't know what the heck happens after that. So when we're talking about agreements, it's like, look, the purpose of I always ask people, what's the purpose of that communication? Like, what's the purpose of it? What are you really trying to accomplish with that? And so if it's not to help you move forward or stay connected and committed to the people you love, then everything else is just kind of chatter, right?
Mhm.
So like if when you're in a conversation with your children, it's like they have a need, you have a need. Okay, let's figure out a strategy to get that need met because I want my needs to be met and you probably want your needs to be met. So then we have to figure out what those needs are and then make some agreements about how we can support each other getting our needs met. And that doesn't happen very often. I don't think we're taught that, to be honest. But it's really, really helpful. And like when we make an agreement, like if I could make an agreement to you, I'm making an agreement to you, yes, but I'm also making an agreement to myself to take a stand, to be
Right.
there for myself. Because if I'm not there for myself, how on the God's green earth am I going to expect you to be there for you, right? And that's the thing I've learned like probably 6 years ago. I'm never going to ask anybody to do things I have never done before, right? I can extrapolate some experience of how it might be different, but I'm not going to sit here and Deborah, I know people in this field that coach or teach people how to say things a certain way, but in their own life, yeah, that doesn't happen. They don't do it. They don't walk the walk or talk the talk, and that gets kind of frustrating. So whenever I work with people, I'm so authentic to who I am and what's worked for me, and it might not work for everybody.
Mhm.
And so it has to be a good fit. Whether you're looking for a coach, a therapist, whatever, it has to be a good fit because otherwise, it's like I mean, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. It can be a waste of time. And there's so many people with trauma out there who have bad fits, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
I work in the prison setting, and one of the things I noticed is like all these guys are in there and they're just having such a hard time. And they said, I really want help. I said, when you get out, you need to find someone who's trauma informed. And
Yeah,
people don't realize that that's a thing, and that male
yeah,
trauma is a thing. Or
right,
even if you're a female, you got to find someone that's a fit for you so that you can move forward, you
right.
know?
So let me ask you then. I'll ask the interview. How would you suggest that people find a fit? What would they need to be looking for to find a fit? And if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But I'm just curious from your perspective. Like when you say, "Hey, you need to go find a fit," like, what does that mean? How am I going to know?
That's true. Most people don't know, you know what I mean? And they don't understand that, but it's like when you walk in a room, Like, can you work with this person? Everybody has that thing, right? But
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
educate yourself on what is therapy. What
Yeah.
types of therapy are there? You don't just walk in and say, I'm going to do psychoanalysis. Well, that's like 5 years in a chair of someone just answering, asking you questions, right? And it's a different thing. Find out what motivational interviewing is. Find out what these different modals are. But really think about, do you want a man? Do you want a woman? Why would you want that? Like, that's a good fit, right?
Yeah.
You can't just go in and say, I'm going to work with whoever because it doesn't work. And then you think, I failed or therapy doesn't work. And that's where therapists get bad raps. But it's also on the professional to say, this is not a fit.
Yeah.
Let me help you. Let me do a soft handoff and find someone for you. I've done that many times.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you probably experienced like, this is not working. It's like a
Yeah.
bad marriage or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like me if I was to say from a different example, okay, Deborah, you need to go get some new clothes. And you're like,
Mhm.
all right, yeah, I think I do need to get some new clothes. And then you come back and the clothes, you don't like them or they don't fit. And all I said was get some clothes. But what I didn't tell you is, Deborah, get some clothes that you absolutely love, that fit you really well,
Mhm.
right? Because if I tell that to Sally or Susie or whatever, they're going to go out and get some clothes, but it's not going to be the same clothes you're going to want to fit into. And
Right.
so it's very, very personal. And,
Right.
and style is really important too, how
Right.
people show up.
Right. It would be like me walking in one color. Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's black, that wouldn't work for me, right?
Yeah.
It just, I have to be who I am. I make noise the minute I walk in the room. But some people, that doesn't work, right? So you wouldn't go to someone who's noisy like me. You'd go to someone who's maybe more calm, right? So fit makes a difference. If not, you're going to still be stuck in your stuff, right? But let's talk about stuck. Like, that's a word because we've said it a couple of times. Like, I define, and this is where language comes in, right? So
Mhm.
I define stuck as not being able to move forward. Like, you're just like in the quicksand, your feet are stuck, right? But like other people have different points of view. Like, from people you've worked with, like, what does that look like? What does that feel like?
From being the provider or from what people have told me on the other side?
Let's play both.
Okay. Okay. So when I was younger, I thought I was top notch in everything that I did. And then I thought I had all the answers, but then I was very quickly humbled to realize that's not true. So let's just say you come to me and three other people come to work for me and your stuck is totally fine with you, whatever that means, and somebody else's is not. So for me, it depends on what each individual views as being stuck, right? And for me, coming from a place of wanting to support people who are stuck, I don't necessarily have a belief that people are stuck, right? It's just another opportunity for growth or, like take for example a butterfly, right? When it's first a caterpillar, then it kind of goes in its cocoons and it has to, crystallize and then eventually becomes a butterfly. So there's like a lot of stages in our life like that. And so when people are stuck, that just says, all right, well, there's a new opportunity here. And one of the ways to really get through that is because a lot of times being stuck is a matter of perspective that you have about a specific issue or topic, primarily yourself, right? So if we can kind of play with the perspectives a little bit, then it kind of frees things up. And the other thing that frees things up that I've recently, probably the last 4 years again, found is really useful when people are stuck, when there's enough rapport, is to add humor to it. Because how can you be stuck and still stuck is a very weighty, serious, like, oh my gosh, I can't move anywhere. It just feels like there's no joy in your life. But when you can incorporate some humor into that, it makes things a little light, and then it allows you to have a little more movement, a little more freedom. Like, well, if I can just do this from laughter, then maybe I can do more things. But it's definitely a slow process. And I love the fact that you said play, because that's what it is. That's what life is about, right? It's how you're going to play the game of life. And one of the other things that I don't do very often, but movement happens to be really um, useful too. Like, I'm stuck, I'm depressed. Well, get out of your house for a little bit and go watch the leaves fall from the trees, or go walk your dog, or something like that, because then it churns everything up. But I think the primary thing is perspective, how you're seeing things, because there's a world of perspectives out there that you're probably not even seeing because you're so myopic about your own stuckness.
Right. And you get tunnel vision in your
Yes, you
stuff,
do.
right?
Everyone does. I do. You do. We all do.
Yeah.
It's this thing, it's this thing. Well, maybe, but what about some other possibilities? And then
Right.
once you realize there's other possibilities, you realize that there you have the ability to choose rather than being stuck, you feel like there's no choices available to you, right? You feel like this is my life and this is where I'm going to stay, and the world is a horrible place to live.
Right. Right. So let me hide in my hole
Yep.
and not do anything, right? And
Yep.
that's where the mental health comes in. That's where the depression comes in. That's where all of these other things come in because you're in that moment, right? And then you said something about language, which is really important, right? Because you can say, well, this you can say this is all I have or this is all I am, but just tweaking those words, right? Like I can have more
Hmm.
changes the whole meaning
Right.
of how you're feeling, right? Like language is so important, you know?
What's your question?
Well, you
Because
told me
I can
to
go.
ask you a question. You told me to have a conversation.
Oh, okay. So I will dovetail off that. Okay, so it's something like this. The words we use create a picture in the mind of others, period. That's what words do. They paint a picture, like as I'm talking to you right now, it's painting some kind of picture in your mind other than what you had before. So each word that we speak is like a description of a small puzzle that creates a masterpiece of a picture in the mind, right? So let's just
Hmm.
say you have a image you're looking at, but it's a horrible image for whatever reason, because maybe you're past trauma or you're having a horrible day and it just looks muted and it looks blah blah blah. Okay, I see your picture, and what if we were to look at a different picture and we'll use some different words to create a whole different way of looking at it as a possibility, not as the truth necessarily, but just as a possibility. You're like, oh my gosh, I was just seeing this picture right here, but there's all kinds of other pictures that I can see, and when we see other pictures, that allows us to consider things outside of where we are currently.
The visualization of it, right?
Right. Right.
Just moving that. Yeah.
Moving that.
So incredible.
And then the other thing too that I was going to talk about is like you were talking about putting your head in the sand and all that stuff. And yes, that happens. And for me, I don't like to take people out of those positions. I like to go into those positions with them. So if like there's an ostrich head in the sand and I see that, I'm going to be digging a hole and putting my head in the sand too, so I can know what it's like to experience. Like, hey man, this is not very fun down here. Let's see if we can figure out how to get out of this together. I don't want you to be alone. I'm not going to do it for you, but I'm going to be the container. I'm going to be the space to let you know, hey, this doesn't have to be your life for the rest of your life if you don't choose it.
Hmm. You can move it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You can move, you can choose, you can have another hole, you can not have any. You I mean, you could go to another planet, like in a way, like you can go somewhere else. But I think that's the crippling effect. People can't visualize. They can't visualize that change, right?
yeah. Well, and then they can't visualize the change, and then so often, like on social media and all these stuff, they have all these word pictures through comments and things like that, and then they compare like, well, I don't have a nice life because I don't have millions in the bank. I have 100,000 in the bank, but and then they just put more story on more story on more story, and in some ways, I think what I do is to help kind of pull off all the extra stuff and look what is the most important thing. What's the most important thing to you? And so, like,
Mhm.
when I was asking you a long time ago, I probably did something like this. Like, if you could only have three things in your life, the most important values or principles that would guide your life, what would those be? So that those get to be the guidepost for how you live your life. Otherwise, there's no target. There's nothing to shoot for. And we all need something to shoot for.
We do. We all need something to shoot for, and we all need to shoot for that in our own way, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's the thing is like diversity is a whole process in this. And when I say diversity, I'm not meaning phenotype and how people look. I'm talking about life walking experiences are diverse things, and people forget that, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I can riff off of that too, but I want to make sure that you're having your needs met by answering the question or asking the questions you want.
Oh
Because
my
these
goodness.
are like topics that like I can just like riff off of, and we could be here for an hour or whatever. But I
Whoa,
know there's limited
we
time.
have some time.
Okay, so set it up. What you want to talk about that? You want to talk about something else or this?
Diversity. I want to talk about how that's different for people and how people don't realize that they are unique and different beyond what people believe is diversity.
Okay. Well, this is going to be up your alleyway. Like say we go outside and it's me and six other people and we see a car crash and then the police come and they say what happened and everybody's going to have a different view of what the hell happened. Well, what was the truth? Well, this happened and this and then this. Well, we all have a different perspective, right? Everyone has their own perception, and their perspective is how they see things, right? Their view, the lens in which they see things. And we know for a fact that there's different ways in which people see things. People that are kind of the black and white thinkers are not going to be able to necessarily see the things in abstract. And that's why they don't get along with people like me, because I love things that abstract, but we need people that are the black and whites. We need people that are the artistic types. We need people that are just the routine types. And so that's what we see in politics all the time. What we really see in politics is, or any disagreement in marriage or whatever, we just see a different way completely of looking at things, right? How we process. People vote their process in politics because that's how they feel the world should be, because it's coming from them. So, and diversity, even in language. I'll tell you a quick story, one quick. I was seeing somebody a long time ago, and I probably was not the best committed partner to her. And she was saying goodbye to me, and I said, and she said, "Be good." And I was like, what the hell? How does she know that I'm doing things that are not good? And then a couple weeks later, she said the same thing, and I was like, how does she know? Like, how? That's all I asked her, and she's like, no, it doesn't mean anything like that. It just means like, hey, have a good day. And I was like, oh, that's right, because you're from the South. When you say things like the be good or things like that, it has a completely different connotation than it does out here on the West Coast, right? So sometimes even our language, and we have to like, wait, what do you mean by that? Because your culture over there is completely different than my culture over there. And when I first hear it, it lands a specific way to how I've been raised and brought up, but maybe not having anything to do with how she was raised or brought up. And so we
Right.
tussle with that all the time. Like our family systems, you grew up out of your family system. I grew up out of mine. Everyone else grows up out of them. What did you learn? Well, that wasn't right, or this wasn't right, or my mom. So we all learn things out of our own environment that play out into the world of how we connect with people outside of that little microcosm of our society called our family.
Right. And then we take that with us. Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. Right.
Most of the time. Most of the time. Most of the time, a fish does not know the fish is in water.
Right. Right.
And you
And
pull the
that's
fish
where it
out,
becomes
yeah,
uncomfortable. Yeah.
really uncomfortable. And so
Yeah.
that's why in certain things, it's like helping people to find their edges of discomfort and lean into those just a little bit. Your edge of discomfort might be small compared to others, but it's still your edge of comfort. And we can't really grow beyond if we don't have our edges expanded. This is not
Yeah.
possible. That's how growing works.
Right. Right. And it's how visualization of the change works. It's how setting a goal of attainment works, right? If you can't go down the path and you can't
Yeah.
see it, you can't go to it, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like when people come to me and they don't know what the hell they want, or how they, well, how the hell are we going to hit it if we don't have a target? Like, you need to have a target. Otherwise, shooting an arrow anywhere in the forest would make sense. But if you're trying to hit like a deer or something like that, you need to know what kind of target you're trying to shoot for. And then if you're off target, okay, well, then let's recalibrate and see if we can get a little closer. But without a target, you're going to stay exactly where you are.
Right. And if you don't, because if you don't have a goal, then you have nowhere to go. You have
Right.
nothing to be. You have nothing
Right.
to strive for,
Right.
right? And that's one of the things, you have to have an end goal. You have to meet the goal. Now there's the people who set the goal and never get to the goal, but that's a whole other part of stuckness that they have to deal with because of what they've seen in their diverse environments,
Right.
you know?
Or what they see that other people on social media and YouTube, like, well, if they can have this many followers, if they can do this in their capacity, I should be able to do it too. And if I don't, then I'm somehow
Right.
less than these influencers on social media, or whoever.
Right. And that's where it comes back to, you have to create the most extraordinary you
Yeah. And it's always,
versus.
always, always an inside game. Always.
Right. But that's so scary.
Well, we think it's an outside, but it's not. But is it really scary? What's scary about that? I'm not putting you on the
Because
spot, but go ahead.
you have to look.
Yeah. And what if what you thought you were looking for wasn't really it, but what you really saw when you pulled back all the layers was just this beautiful, magnificent creation that you're meant to be?
But nobody ever envisions that. That's the part. And then it's there, but no one actually ever sees it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
when you look inside, you always see the negative versus seeing the positive. It's like the news shows. News shows always show negative because nobody watches.
Yeah.
If they had a good news channel, nobody would watch that.
Yeah.
Right. But they will watch all this other stuff that's in the news. And it's the same thing with people. We are
Yeah.
socialized to do that. And that's the part that we have to change, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, and I know that I know you're going to give me a response that is not it, maybe,
Okay.
but in in 3 words, how does someone become the most extraordinary you?
Number one, flow. Human, as far as I can tell, has to be in flow to some degree, however that flow is, whether it's designing computer software or whether it's singing or whatever, but they have to experience flow of some kind. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point in living, right? So maybe the flow is like you're on a hunt and you just feel the environment around you and you're just in flow. You're in a state of like time doesn't matter. Because if you don't have that, I don't know too much else that really matters. Yeah, people can say things like love and all this stuff, but for me, it's flow. And the second thing is to be challenged in some capacity. You have to be challenged in some capacity. Otherwise, you're not keeping your edges sharp. And the third one, it's not just a word, but it's to realize who you really are underneath
Mm.
all the stories and the bullshit that people have taught you what and how to believe.
Yeah, that's hard. That's probably the hardest one.
Yeah, and it's always a work in progress, right? It's
Mhm.
something we get to work on day in, day out. And in some ways it's like challenging ourselves just a little bit every single day. Just a little bit, whatever it happens to be. And maybe your challenge could be, all right, I'm gonna rest. And maybe
That doesn't
that's your
happen in
challenge.
my life.
You get to rest. But if it doesn't, maybe it's your challenge. I'm going to challenge myself to rest. So it's like there's this constriction and then release. The constriction and then release. Sometimes people are on such constriction their whole lives that they die earlier. They don't find the release. And some people, all they have is the release, and there's no constriction. There's nothing that's going to like get them up and moving and all that stuff. So we need both. It's like the yin and the yang and the black and the white. It's all the same continuum to some degree, but the way that humans can conceptualize it is, more or less binary.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. What do you want to leave us with, Mark?
That life is worth it if you believe in yourself to the degree that you would believe your best friend or child has everything in themselves that they need to live a flourished life.
I'll tell you, I'm going to leave you with a nugget because you never know how people think of you, right? So my aunt passed away and I was
Oh,
planning her services, right? And I said, okay, I got someone who's going to do the service for you, do the eulogy. My mom's walking around the house and she's like, Mark's doing it. Mark's doing it. So Sonia comes out and she says, Mark's doing it. Mark's doing the service. Mark's going to talk about Aunt Susie. Oh, that's so great. All this stuff. I'm like, why the heck would she think I would ask Mark that? And I had
mm,
to wrap my brain because my friend's doing it, who's a priest, right?
uh-huh,
And
uh-huh,
I said, oh, my dear God. And I thought about it. And she's like, but he'd do that for you. And I talk about you so positively. I talk about the love that you have for
uh-huh,
people in your life
uh-huh.
that she just assumed that, yep, Mark would do that because that's who Mark is.
Wow. Wow. That gives
Isn't
me
it great?
chills.
And you've
Like,
never met her.
never met her, heard about her, never did assume that would come across her mind. Maybe yours, maybe Sonia's, whatever. But yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. Just the feedback that is useful because I give everything I can, but I don't often know how it ripples out, right? So
Right.
like sometimes I see myself as like a pebble in a clear pond and it ripples
Yeah.
out, but I never get to see the damn ripples. Well, sometimes I do,
Right.
like when you share.
Right. But that's why I gave you that nugget, because that is the impact you have had in my house. To my mother, who's removed from you, would know your heart like that, because
Yeah,
that is what's coming out of me. It starts
yeah,
in the home. It's how you speak. People see that, right? And
yeah.
people interact in a way that you want them to, you know?
Wow.
So,
Okay. I'm gonna pay you for this session. And she's right. She's not wrong. She's not wrong because I totally would, even though I wouldn't know what to say specifically in your search.
because you would have done it if I said
Yeah,
it, if I asked.
yeah.
You know? So, anyways, how do people get in contact with you? Because I'm sure you're probably going to get people wanting to talk to you after seeing this podcast.
Just my email. I'm not on social media because I don't like to get stuck down that rabbit hole. So the best way to get in contact me is just to reach out to your extraordinary life coach at Gmail. I mean, I'm probably going to have some social media stuff out there at some point, or I don't know. You can just give them my phone number. Does that work, or is that not working?
No, don't give me your phone number. We
No,
won't do that. But we
no.
will put your email at the bottom, and people can
Okay,
always contact me, and I will
right.
get them a hold of you.
Yeah,
Right.
love it.
Or in that show, Just Healing.
That's it. That's it. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you and taking the time to interview me or have a
No,
no interviewing conversation,
just conversations that we have.
conversation, conversation,
Conversations with Mark. That would be
conversations.
a great podcast of your own. Conversations with Mark.
Yeah.
So, everybody, thank you for joining us for this episode of Just Healing.